What is good, Tesla family? It's Ray J back with another video, and in this one I'm going to be breaking down what's going on with Tesla, SPY, Nvidia, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. I'm going to break down what's going on with the overall market, with the economic calendar coming out, what the news is saying about Tesla, what you should be watching for as time progresses. But before I break anything down all this information, before I get into any more details, let me just mention a couple of things. I am firstly not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please smash the like button if you want to see more videos like this. It not only benefits me, it benefits the entire Tesla community as a whole. Anyways, let's break down what's happening to the market. Looking at the market, we had a very interesting day. The market was holding up for the first couple of hours. Then during the last 1.5 hours, we got this massive rug pull. So the market gets smacked down. This ended up having a big effect on Tesla, on SPY, Nvidia, the QQQ, and many other tickers. So the whole market ended up getting just smacked down, and almost every ticker out there just ended up closing red. This happened because of so many different factors. Let's go over what those factors were before I break down the charts. So the first thing worth mentioning is that the market reached extreme greed yesterday in the fear and greed index. The market was pumping and pumping and pumping. People started buying in like crazy. They became very hyped, and the technicals remained very strong as the market continued to push. Even in the morning, the market kept pushing. We saw Tesla break this high, getting very close to 260. It was trying to hold up, but this was the perfect area for the market makers to start grabbing liquidity at these stops right up here, and then they were getting ready to just smack everything right back down instead. SPY was also holding up very nicely in the beginning before we saw this thing just get a big pivot from hitting its top. And this happened as a result of people becoming too greedy. Sometimes this happens when way too many people are just greedy and expecting a big squeeze to end the year. Sometimes there's trickery from the market makers as they start to kind of like switch sides. Now they're starting to hurt people holding the calls. And this is very ironic because, or it's not really ironic, because we ended up hitting a put and call option ratio that was the same as that of July 2023 before the markets topped. So you guys can see it right here. We saw a lot of the bears just closing their puts. We started to see lots and lots of call buying. That's why the put and call ratio dropped like crazy, just like during those July levels. And then as a result, this eventually led to the market just finding its top and then coming back down. So that's the first factor. I also want to add that the algorithms played a big role in this potentially happening as the market pumped for about 7 weeks in a row. This would have been the eighth week, but if the market pumps too much, sometimes there's going to be moments like this. The algorithms played a big role in just kind of triggering more selling, market makers and algorithms, not to mention consumer sentiment. And finally, you could also argue that anticipation of some data could have played somewhat of a role. I can't really guarantee that until we see the data tomorrow, but that could be another big factor. I'll be breaking down the data in just a few minutes. But another big factor was this. Uh, President Xi of China warned Biden during the summit that Beijing will reunify Taiwan with China. Now, that is some negative news because this led to more geopolitical issues, more concerns for many companies associated with China. This was some bad news for them, also companies associated with Taiwan. So this was very bad for Nvidia, for the Teslas out there, many Chinese tickers, and the market as a whole. So all of these different factors all played a role together. There could be even more news coming out tomorrow. We'll just have to wait and see. But for now, the market is showing signs of a big pivot and a big turn that's coming. What's happening with the economic data, guys? For tomorrow, 1 hour before the market opens, that's when the main pieces of data are coming out. We have all this data, but the most important ones are going to be the GDP numbers. The GDP growth rate quarter over quarter for Q3 is coming out. We'll be watching to see if this is too strong or not. If it's too strong, this could be a little concerning because too much growth in the economy could be associated with more consumer spending, and that's something that Jerome Powell once mentioned, and that is this could lead to the Fed having to keep rates higher for longer. Not a guarantee, though. We'll just have to see what the numbers look like. The consensus and forecasts are still pretty hot for GDP. Then we also have at the same time, an hour before the market opens, the jobless claims numbers coming out. We want this to be between 209 215,000. Let's hope it's very close to that. Besides that, we have the 4-week and the 8-week bill auctions coming out at 11:30 a.m. And finally, for Friday, we have the PCE data coming out alongside the Michigan Consumer Sentiment Report. That's pretty much it when it comes to economic data. So an hour before the market opens, then also at 11:30 a.m. we have some data that could cause some volatility. Those are the two main times to be watching for these moves, and that's pretty much it for tomorrow. But I also want to add that when it comes to Tesla, we got some bad news and some decent news. So I went over the majority of the news yesterday, guys. I was talking about the unions, what was going on with Tesla's big changes, Tesla's FSD update. I went over all of that for my last couple of videos, so I'm not going to review those articles. They're still making headlines right now, but I have like two main ones I just want to talk about. Some good news would be that Tesla secured a new credit union partner to reduce the EV payments, which is pretty good. We have it right here. Origins, hopefully I'm not saying that wrong, the leading credit union lending technology company in the US. It's also going to be partnering with Tesla to offer credit union financing for EV buyers through the Tesla website. That's some good news for them. That's going to help to, buyers seek more affordable monthly payments. That is decent news so far. We also had some bad news. As a result, we're starting to see basically Danish, Finnish, and Norwegian unions across the range of sectors coming together, unifying, and just continuing to just fight with Tesla, basically, when it comes to like legal battles and such. Elon Musk and Tesla are getting involved. Musk has spoken negatively about this, how he doesn't really like this, and he just thinks that he even spoke negatively about just the existence of unions once. So he's free to have his views, but the bottom line is, as Dan Ives said, that this is leading to a WWE-like standoff where we're starting to see more and more of these issues arising. We also saw many people in Sweden just delivering Teslas without the license plates. So they're just continuing to protest. This is bad news, and I really believe that Tesla has to come to an agreement on this. They have to work much more efficiently, and they have to be very, very cautious with what they say and what they do in the lawsuits, and they have to be listening to what the demands are of these unions, because it's hurting Tesla to some extent. It's hurting Elon Musk, and a lot of work has to be done. Now, I'm not going to go into the full details about this. I went into more detail in my last few videos. I'm going to kind of skip for now. This news is pretty negative for Tesla, the news involving China and Taiwan. That was bad news for the markets, especially for Tesla. So that's part of why the market sold off, just partly, not everything. As far as Tesla's numbers go, we have the data right here. Good news is still coming out that the overall inventories in the US are dropping. This is actually globally. They're still dropping as there's still more buyers coming in during this Q4 session. Tesla's still on track to hit those 1.8 million deliveries for the year. So let's hope they end up achieving that. The volume was about 125 million, so a little bit above average. So we saw some high volume selling on Tesla. Not crazy high volume, but like a little bit more than usual. Price price ratio is dropping as Tesla's underperforming a little bit. This is not the best of news after the news that came out. Thursdays tend to be green only about 47% of the time, so they tend to be one of the weakest days of the week. Not so good for Tesla. Watch for volatility at around noon and 2 p.m. and also during like the penultimate hour or around 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Watch for volatility at those times. Anyways, that's it for all of my data analysis. Now let's focus more on what's going on with Tesla and the different things out here. So I want to note that when you go to Tesla like this, notice how the 4-hour has this very bearish looking candlestick. And then we're also testing the 50 EMA at this 247 area on the 4-hour time frame. That's going to be our key support. On the daily time frame, however, Tesla looks very bearish. We've got a big rejection. I do think Tesla's going to rebound just a little bit. Could back this 250 just to grab more liquidity before it comes down. And I think that there's more downside coming as the daily looks very weak. So Tesla's looking weak, guys. Unfortunately, it's looking weaker. It got this little pop as a trap, and we started to see liquidity being grabbed before Tesla turned. I told you guys that Tesla was respecting an uptrend. We kept bouncing off this yellow trend over and over and over again. But for me to turn bearish, I wanted to see Tesla basically lose 252 and then 250. If we lost that support zone, I would turn bearish on Tesla. And lo and behold, that is what happened today. So unfortunately, my view has to change. I'm going to zoom out just for a second just to show you where these trend lines came from. I know someone requested that. So the blue trend line comes from this resistance here. That's based off historical data. The yellow trend line comes from the support right here that's been holding Tesla quite a bit. And then this other resistance right over here comes from these wicks right over here. So I know it's a little hard to see, but I just want to show you just so you guys know where these lines have come from. That way they're not just like completely made up or anything like that. So anyways, these are some levels to watch for. If Tesla tries to rebound, watch resistance at 248. This is some minor resistance there. We also have 250 and then 252 as resistance levels. And then for support, we have 247. If we lose this, watch the blue trend line very close to this 244 to 245 area. If we lose this, watch for 242 and then 240 as support, followed by 238. So what do I think Tesla's going to do in my honest opinion? I think it's going to try to rebound just a tiny bit, pump like 1 or 2 points, try to get back to this 250 zone and then kind of shop around for some time. Then I think as the day goes on, we're going to see Tesla sell off more. And I think that 247 is not going to hold. I think it's going to break below this and come back down towards 244, 242 or so, and eventually 240. So I see some downside coming. We got a very bearish looking daily candlestick. Tesla's looking a lot weaker, and we lost our critical support at 252 and 250. So it looks weak. I think it's going to try to backtest 250, getting a little close to it, then reject. That is the most probable possibility. If you want to be bullish on Tesla, you want to see it hold above 250. If you want to be bearish, you want to see it lose this blue trend line at 244. Once again, what do I think is going to happen? A little pop and then a drop as time goes on and a break below to at least 244, if not 242 to 240. All right. What about SPY? In my opinion, SPY is also looking very weak. If we look at the candlesticks on SPY, the 4-hour time frame is looking very, very weak right now. We're just barely holding the 50 EMA at 467. So it happens to be the same support on Tesla and also on SPY, the 50 EMA on the 4-hour time frame. The daily time frame is looking bearish. It looks very bearish on the daily. It looks like it has more downside coming. I think we're just getting started. So what do I think SPY is going to do? Honestly, guys, if you want to be bullish, you want to see it hold 472, which I don't think is going to happen. If you're bearish, you want to see it just continue to sell off. And if you're kind of neutral, you want to see it try to hold around 468. What do I think SPY is going to do? Here's my answer. So for the first time, we actually had a bearish divergence that played out. These have not been working for the last couple of weeks as there's a lot of manipulation and a lot of things going on to squeeze shorts. But for once, a bearish divergence finally played out, and we have a potential PPO crossover. We also saw the volume on the daily increase as we're starting to see more selling that's making up the volatility. So, with that being said, I think this thing is going to rebound a little bit. We have to see what this data kind of like causes first. We might see SPY try to get very close to the 470 area. Then it might reject, and I think it's going to eventually sell off by Friday, all the way back down to below 467 by at least 465, or even below that. And I think there's going to be more downside. But to be like really bearish, you want to see confirmation of a break below 467. If we lose 467, that confirms the bears have control, and that's going to be a big, big boost for the bears. So I went over the bullish and bearish cases. Just know I am favoring the bears. A little pop and drop is very probable. And we might see that very, very soon. Don't forget to watch these levels, by the way. We have these resistance levels I called out in support. I think it's going to pop and then drop, and I think 465 is coming, then eventually 462 if that fails us. I still favor the downside a bit more. The QQQ has lost some critical support. I'll be showing you that in a second. So basically, on the QQQ, watch resistance around this 404 area. Above that, we have 405 to 405.7. I think this could kind of like rebound just a little bit, form kind of like a flag, and eventually break down and make its way down towards 404. And if that fails us, we have 402 coming next. I think that the QQQ is going to retrace even more. So look for a little pop and a drop as time goes on. And I think that there's more downside coming. I think that stocks like Nvidia are going to play a role in dragging this down, not to mention Tesla and Apple. I think it's going to just pump and drop just like that of SPY. If we're bullish, you want to see it hold 406. If you're bearish, you want to see it lose 402. Once again, I think a little pop to this 405 zone is coming before it drops down to 402, maybe even all the way down to 399 after that. So make sure you watch those supports just to be safe. On Nvidia, to me, the chart is looking kind of bearish now. We have a head and shoulders like structure on Nvidia. Nvidia did get this little pop as we were talking about yesterday, but it rejected. I told you in the morning, if you lose 488, expect it to come down to 482. And if it broke above 495, expect it to push up towards 500. What happened? We initially broke up above 495 to hit 500. Then we came back down. Then we had 488 as critical support. Once we lost that, that was our sign that Nvidia was going to sell off more, and an easy short could have been made much earlier. Actually, it didn't have to be like down there, but that was our signal. Nvidia might come back up towards this resistance around this like 485 to 486 level. Then I anticipate it's going to sell off more towards the blue trend line, hitting this 475 area. This blue trend line comes from this support right over here. I think we're going to be testing this trend line again. I think Nvidia is going to like pop and drop, make its way down to 475 and eventually 470 as time goes on. Just to show you the daily time frame, guys, I just want to mention that. Let's just close that. The daily chart is looking a bit more bearish. Looks like it's going to sink a lot more, so make sure you watch your levels carefully. It looks a little bit weak. Apple's looking kind of weak on the daily. I think it's going to come down to 193 as time goes on. I'm going to try to be quicker, guys. I know I'm kind of like dragging this out. Apple may pop a bit, just a little bit, towards 196, then reject and come down to 194.4, then eventually 193.5. I think it's going to pop and drop, and I see some downside. I think this inverse head and shoulders was a trap, and I think downside's coming to Apple. Anyways, guys, that's it for the main five. I'm going to be very quick to end the video. I just want to make this very simple. For SoFi, this is looking kind of bearish now. I think that it's going to basically come down to the 4-hour, I think it's the 50 EMA. I think 8.96 is coming. Look for a backtest of like 9.5, then 8.96 for more downside. I think the IWM could backtest to 197, then come back down to 193 at the 50 EMA. There's a gap to fill around 193 too, so look for a pop and drop to 193. For Microsoft, I see more downside potentially coming now. after this big rejection we got, we could back test the resistance at 372, then come back down towards 366. So I do anticipate some downside. For AMD, I just want to mention that looking at AMD, I think we could back test 136, and then we could be making our way back down towards the lower levels. I think that it's going to slowly come down to 131. But we have to see this thing lose the 50 EMA first. So look for a little rebound and a big rejection. 136 and a big rejection back down towards 134.85. And if we lose the 50 EMA, which I think it's going to happen, we're going to see this thing come down to 131. I think it's going to come down to 131 then 128. So a little pop and drop on AMD is very probable. The VIX is starting to look bullish. We actually broke above the 50 EMA on the 4-hour time frame and also the 20 EMA, which is the first time that happened in a very long time. So now the VIX looks like it could be pushing for 15, which suggests that there's more downside for the markets to cause that. As QQQ looks bullish, I think 14.5 plus is coming. It looks bullish. The market's going to likely play a role in that happening. The dollar index looks bullish. We're going to likely test 102.77 or higher than that. Could get close to 103. Coinbase did exactly what I predicted almost. I said 168 is coming for Coinbase, guys. We had 169.5, so a little bit higher than expected, but now it's starting to turn. So I anticipate it's going to be coming down to 160, then 156.72 very soon for the 4-hour 20 EMA. So I anticipate some downside on Coinbase. I think it's very probable as time goes on. For Alibaba, I anticipate it's going to be coming down towards 70. For Google, I anticipate it's going to be, it could pop a little bit, back test 141, then eventually come down to 137. It is losing some momentum right here, so watch for 141, then 137. I think it's going to cool off a little bit. Amazon is also starting to look bearish to me. It's starting to turn right here. You guys can see this big rejection. Could back test 153, then come down to 150, which is close to the 50 EMA on the 4-hour time frame. So a little pop and drop. Could back test 153, then come down towards 150, and that's going to be pretty much it for Amazon, at least for now. And then for Meta, looking weak now. Got a nice pop. This is just them grabbing liquidity. We have a triple bearish divergence. These don't always play out, guys, but this time we have signals that's going to play out. So I think Meta is going to backtest this resistance right here. It could come up to 351, then reject and come down to 344 or even below that. 344 is likely coming, followed by 337. So a little pop and drop is very probable. It looks bearish on the 4-hour time frame. The market's likely going to sink in a very healthy fashion. All right, guys, so that's it for this one. You guys have the reasons as to why the market sold off the way it did. It's technical analysis. It's, the market makers, manipulation, all these different factors, not to mention the news for Tesla with the unions, and then also involving China. So with all this bad news coming out involving China and Taiwan and all these other things, all we could do is just move forward. The market is doing something that's also like very healthy for technicals, getting a little pullback after people became greedy. So look for a little pop in Tesla before this thing continues lower, in my opinion. So we're going to be watching to see how support holds. It is what it is, guys. Thank you all for listening. I'll be back tomorrow morning to talk more. But thank you again. Have an absolutely spectacular rest of the day. Remain calm, cool, and collected. And peace out.